Hey, so we have an interesting show today. Do you have a gifted child, or have you known someone who's had a gifted child? What are the different ways that we identify a gifted child in society or in our schools, and what really defines that a child is gifted? There's a lot of myths. There's a lot of misconceptions about what that is. So today we're going to have some really great, lively discussion around kind of identifying and servicing those gifted children in our lives. My name is Cheryl Bassett. I'm founder of Unstoppable Connections, international bestseller, and creator of the award-winning Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I am also the host of this show, Kitchen Table Conversations, as part of the Edge Network. Now, what I get to share in my life is really 4 gifts that came out of my family journey, and it had everything to do with how we connected in a way where everybody felt heard, respected, supported, and celebrated in that process. So if you would like to learn more about my work around connecting families, you can go to unstoppableconnections.com. And if you have an idea for this show, or you would like to be on the show, you can reach out to me at kitchentableconversations.com. So I want to set an intention for the show. I do this for every show because I feel like it's so important. What this show is really about is kind of covering the fun stuff to the tough stuff and everything in between. It's all, though, designed to ignite conversations, to strengthen our families, and to create a positive ripple out into the world. So what we do is we get to tap into one of those gifts I talked about, which is the gift of love. And how we unwrap the gift of love is by choosing to celebrate ourselves and others. So it's with that heart, that open mind, and that intention that we ground every show. And we also welcome then the person who came here today to share their time, their talent, and their energy, because they also wanted to be a part of this amazing ripple that's being created. So with that, what I'd like to do now is I'm going to bring on Otto, who's going to talk about this, Otto Schmitt. And what I'm going to do right now, though, is read just a little bit of his background before I bring him on screen and you all get to meet him. Otto is a retired teacher living in Toronto, Canada. He is one of the pioneers among those setting up gifted programs in Toronto in the 1970s. He is the author of 2 books related to giftedness, Accent on Essential Life Skills, and also Accent on Educating the Highly Intelligent. Otto is also a designer of curriculum for gifted education and an inventor training training courses. That was easy to say. He specializes in teaching highly personal competency skills nationally and internationally to children and adults. So with that, I'm just really excited because this is a unique conversation we're going to get to have today. So I'm just really excited to bring him on.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Otto. How are you? Good. Thank you for being here. This is a different topic, and I love that because some of the topics we do, they feel like they kind of all flow in the same vein, but this is really different and unique. So I love it. Let me start off by asking, though, what I ask at the front of every show is it how is it you landed where you landed, and what is it that makes you passionate about what you do?
Well, back in the mid-'70s, I had the amazing opportunity of working in the Science Center in Toronto. It's called the Ontario Science Center. It's world famous. Just look it up. You'll see what's there. And coming off of that, after 2 years, there was an opening in a brand new gifted program that they were setting up with the school board that I was with. And they asked me if I wanted to get into that. So I was one of the first 8 people to be in there to set these programs up. So that's where I'm coming from.
Gotcha.
I've been at it ever since. It is an incredible field.
Yeah, I know when you and I connected, you had so many just amazing ideas in terms of even some of the things we're doing in the Family Connection Challenge group. But and we did the Great Airplane Challenge, which was really a fun challenge. But so I know that and I think you sent me this huge long list of all these different things that you've done over the years, right? In terms of different things with that we could actually incorporate into the challenges, but things that you've done. So is that list coming from all the stuff that you've interacted in the past in that space, or was that later?
Well, if you take a look at it from the mid-'70s, we're looking at about 45 years of experience. And to be honest with you, I'm as fresh with it today as I was way back then. It is such an incredible experience to work with the highly intelligent people of our society. And from the very young, 2, 3, 4 years old, right up to the adults that suddenly discover they're gifted, it's a huge, huge area that needs to be more explored and needs to be more valued.
Yeah. So you're bringing up a question I already have, and it's like personal. So what are some of the first, like you can tell at age 2 or 3 that as young as that?
Yep.
And what are some of the things that you see at that age that kind of let you know that maybe your child isn't falling into that category, if you will?
I had one mother tell me, I think the child was a year and a half old or something, and all of a sudden pointed out the window and said bird. The vocabulary just went on from there. The 3-year-old taught himself to read, as do many gifted kids. They teach themselves to read. They figure out the code. They figure out how to decipher the whole thing for themselves. I had one parent tell me that an uncle visited, and the uncle was told that little Lisa could read. Well, she's only 3 or 4 years old. Like, yeah, sure, prove it. So mother gave the little Lisa a check, and little Lisa read, in Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, yeah, that's very nice.
I met one mother with a 5-year-old who knew all the countries of the world and all the capitals and was super excited about science. I worked with a family who had 2 daughters. The one daughter was reading medical books by age 5, 6. Both parents were doctors. And not only was she reading the book, she was drawing pictures of cells and all the components of cells. This girl later on went on to win the All-Canada Spelling Competition. And the sister was supposedly even smarter, but I didn't get a chance to work with her.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. I was always fascinated by, and I don't, like my boys are probably like, pretty in that normal range, whatever that is. I mean, they're both, bright young men, but I was fascinated when David was really young, and I don't know if this really falls into it. Maybe it's a different thing, but I was trying to teach him how to learn the alphabet on the refrigerator. And one day I thought, oh my God, this poor child's never going to figure this out. And I started actually worry the other direction. And, but then one day he said the whole alphabet backwards.
Wow.
In one fell swoop.
Wow.
Like, and I was like, and I couldn't believe it. So I had him do it again. And I was like, and I had to follow a lot because I couldn't even do that. Right. Like, yeah, but I'm wondering if that's almost like a photographic.
Well, yeah, there's got to be more to it involved than that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what you're looking for as a parent and as a teacher or whatever is the ability to think deeper and broader than normal.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's met gifted kids. Everybody's met gifted adults. And there's a spark that they have that a lot of other, us ordinary people, I don't mind being ordinary. I learned everything about gifted education. I pass it on to gifted people, but I can't do what they do. And the thing is, if you watch them, there is that spark. There's a spark of creativity. There's a spark of intellectual ability. They can reason and interpret and draw conclusions that most people can't. There's a level of sensitivity and involvement in activist issues, that kind of thing. Why are people being hurt? Why is there so much pain and suffering? And most kids aren't worrying about that kind of stuff at early ages. But these gifted kids quite often are. They become the activists.
So they're looking at the world a little bit differently, and they're really, I guess, more inquisitive.
Well, the inquisitiveness is very important there too. And this is why it's so important that parents cater to that, the inquisitiveness. It's important to ask the questions, but it's also more important to get the answers and to show them how to get the answers. Because ultimately, you don't want them dependent on people giving them information, knowledge, and facts. Instead, what you want to do is to teach them how to get the knowledge, facts, and information, and how to think about it in many different ways. And from a skills point of view, I specialize in skills-based curriculum and skills-based teaching. And it's very different because you're teaching people how to learn, not what to learn. So this is what you're looking for in the young children, especially, even in adults. There are exceptional adults that just shine out and stick out from the crowd. their chances are a very good chance that they're gifted.
All right. Is there any, like, I mean, we didn't talk about this before, so I'm shooting in the dark here a little bit, but I assume, are there like places they could go to take like a assessment test for a child who maybe at least has learned to read, I guess, but maybe like when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, is there a place they can go and actually sort of evaluate if they think they fall into that gifted category as well?
Well, that's a really touchy issue, because most school boards, even I think pretty well across North America, they like to do their own testing first.
Okay.
They have their own criteria. But the problem there is every school board does it a little differently.
Yeah.
And if you get a school board with a high concentration of really intelligent people, because it's a hub, for instance, an electronics hub, or sort of an intelligent hub, university city or whatever, then they want to try and control the number of people that they get into gifted programs.
Mm-hmm.
So they set the standard higher and higher and higher, so that the right number of gifted students get into their programs. They don't want the whole school gifted.
Right. Kind of takes away from the moment. But on the other hand, you're right. You think about it, if you live next to some place that's like Nassau, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then obviously you're going to maybe have a whole community where just there's a more of those gifted children, obviously.
Yeah, the kids of the people in Silicon Valley, for example, there's a very good chance that they're going to be highly intelligent. So that's one thing that happens with school boards. Outside of the school boards, people will call me and say, can I get my child tested? Well, yes, you can. There are specialists, psychologists, and so on that will do the testing.
Okay.
Now, the big question is, so you pay hundreds of dollars for testing, what next? What do you do next?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the resources, if you don't have the trained teachers, if you don't have the schools that specialize in it, what are you going to do with your child? So they're tested. You spent all that money. What's next?
Yeah. What do I do with the information I just learned, right? And
it's sort of like going to court. You can get a judgment, but who says you're going to get paid?
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So that's, I just like, I find the whole thing fascinating, probably because I'm, I don't think I fall into that category, but I think I'm really good on the relationship side of things, and I'm grateful for that. But I know, so you, I'm just looking at the questions that you and I kind of talked about a little bit before, but you have down here myths and truths about it. So do you want to
You're not going to believe this. Everybody that's listening right now, you're not going to believe this, but these same things have come up since the mid-1970s. They continue to come up year after year after year. Nobody seems to ever resolve them. There's next generation come up, and they have the same attitudes toward these gifted kids. So let's take a look at some of them first of all, the most obvious ones. Number one, gifted kids are gifted. They don't need any help. They're already smart enough. They can do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like saying, okay, here's this young boy who is a hockey player, and let's say Wayne Gretzky, who was just at a superior level when he was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. So what do you say to them? Well, they're gifted and or very highly talented. They should be able to do it themselves. They don't need special help. But instead, we pull them out and we give them special consideration. You look at Olympic athletes, the cream of the cream, the cream of the crop in sports. Look at who gets into the NHL. Look who gets into tennis. Those people have been trained. They have been nurtured. They have been looked after. Why don't we do that with people who are intellectually smart too?
Right. Yes. In sports, that they definitely do that. You're right. And then obviously, I mean, do you think it's just because people don't know what to do though?
That's part of it. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of it. See, the problem is, from my perspective, Vinny, this is my opinion. Most of education is knowledge, fact, and information-based. Knowledge, fact, information-based, which means that kids are more or less spoon-fed while they're in school. With gifted education, what we set up back in the mid-70s was a skills-based approach. In other words, we teach you how to analyze. We teach you how to write essays, and so on and so on. We teach you how to interview, how to communicate, how to think logically. When you've got those skills, then you apply them. You figure out what to apply them in. Many teachers think, oh, I'm going to write up these wonderful units for my gifted kids. So I got a group of 10 gifted kids, and I spent a month writing up a unit on ancient Rome. Let's say ancient Rome. Those kids chew it up in a day or two. Most of them probably know more about it than the teacher does.
Sure does.
And it's so self-defeating. So let's prevent teacher burnout. Let's give teachers the tools so that they can teach the skills, teach them the skills first so they can teach their kids the skills.
Right.
And then once the kids learn the skills, that's empowerment.
Yeah.
And the empowerment leads to two things. One, independent learning, and two, self-directed learning. Independent meaning I can choose to do it by myself, or I can bring somebody else into it. That's normal life. That's natural life.
Right.
Every company, every business person can do that. Why not students? Secondly is self-directed. Self-directed means I choose the areas and topics that I study. And if I want to go into if I want to go deep into something, I can become the specialist. If I want to learn broadly about something, I can become the expert. So those are the two things that we want kids to become, experts and specialists.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if they could do that with almost every topic. The only way they can do that, however, is if they have the personal competency skills to apply to those areas.
Right. I'm not sure if we covered a couple myths there, but the myth that you started with that was that basically gifted kids don't need any support or whatever, and that's not true. They do. Like
Right.
they
Very much do.
just like we talked about in sports. Obviously, there's value in them getting that additional direction.
Yes, and just a sideline to that. A lot of people will say, the money that's in education that's set up for special education should be going to the highly needy. There are kids with disabilities and challenges and learning disabilities and problems and so on. The money should be going to them, not students that are highly capable, highly intelligent.
Right.
And the question there is, if they are all under the special education umbrella, shouldn't they not get equal attention?
Right. Yeah, it's just one end of the
spectrum.
Spectrum, I guess. Yeah, I was going to say, is that the right word to say? Spectrum. So, yeah. So what other myths do you think are out there? Because it sounded like you had more.
One of the things that school boards like to do is to try to keep gifted kids in their classrooms. And first of all, the belief is that a regular classroom teacher can meet the needs of gifted students. So in other words, you've got gifted students, you've got other special ed students in your class, you've got regular kids, and the teacher can meet all the needs. The thing is, with gifted kids, if they are as intelligent as they are, and if they learn as quickly as most of them do, the teacher's not going to be able to keep up. Mm-hmm. It's easier to try and help somebody up to a level of competency than to take someone at a high level of competency and then, well, what am I going to do with them?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn how to handle that competency. And the way to do it is to teach them how to learn on their own so that they become independent, self-directed learners. And that's what we want for all kids, really.
Really, it is, yeah.
Helping others. So we can very quickly work with gifted kids and make them into that type of learner, and then they will race ahead as fast as they want and as far as they want.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want happy kids who aren't bored and aren't dependent on teachers, and they're not puppets to the system.
Yeah. So it's and I have heard that before, and that's true of any student, right? It's not so much like it's not about giving them the answers. It's teaching them how to seek out those answers for themselves.
That's right. Exactly.
Then you set them up for success in life in general, right? Because they become and step into the energy of how they can solve something versus somebody just giving it to them and saying, "Oh, this is the answer." So, are schools shifting that way more, where there's more of this? I mean, in general, or do you think it's still got a long way to go?
The problem is the curriculum is set, and the teachers are expected to teach it. There is an effort to try and bring skills into the curriculum. But from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, it works in a rather strange way. It's like saying, okay, here are the skills we want you to use with our curriculum. But the skills aren't taught directly first. It's like, this is your existing skill set. This is what you should have in your skill sets toolbox. So go ahead and fix the bike. Go ahead and do this independent study. Go ahead and do this research without any prior teaching, without any prior experience. And that's where the teachers have to come in. Many of the teachers, let me give you an example. If I said, what does paying attention mean? Everybody has a different interpretation, a different understanding of it. Very simply, paying attention means a willingness to give time. If you can explain that to kids, even adults, then there's a whole different understanding of it. And this is what you do with your attention. You focus your time on what is happening. You know when you're on task, off task, based on your awareness of the time that you have in your control. So all of a sudden now this child has a skill. The adult has a skill. Anybody listening to me right now, you've just gotten a new skill. Practice it.
Right.
Control your time. Know what you're doing with your time. You will know when you're on task, off task. Your concentration will improve. Your whole thinking about a topic will improve because you give it time instead of breaking it all up and scattering it all over the place in multitasking.
Oh, squirrel. Anyway, yeah. So guilty is charged on that one sometimes. So if you are watching right now and you think that you may have a gifted child, or you're interested in learning more about, or maybe you know someone that needs.
Sorry, I can't hear you or see you moving, Cheryl. You've cut out, Cheryl. I don't know what's happened to Cheryl. If all of you can see me and hear me, I'm going to take a risk here and a chance and just keep talking. I hope Cheryl doesn't mind if she doesn't really like me doing this, and she'll have to get in touch and maybe we can do this show all over again. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the other myths and truths about gifted education. I've heard people saying that all students are gifted. Everybody is gifted. Well, if that's the case, then technically everybody should be able to be a world-class musician, or everybody that plays a musical instrument should be able to be a conductor of an orchestra or something like that. If all students are gifted, then everybody can become rocket scientists. But there are obviously people that can't. And there are obviously people who are very smart that we need to nurture and have them grow into that kind of job so that they become valuable members of our society. Another myth is that students who don't do well in school can't possibly be gifted, or kids with disabilities are usually not gifted. Well, that's wrong too. Giftedness, first of all, is not something that gets added on. It is a way of life. And they, somehow or other, they've gotten off the path that they want to be on, and they're not performing at the level that they might want to be, or maybe they're just bored. Maybe they don't care. I had one student tell me, I get 60s, 70s, 75, 80s, but I don't want to work any harder because I'm doing a dozen different things in my life outside of school. So as long as I pass, that's fine, no problem. I had a chance to talk to her years later, and after graduating, she became one of the Google engineers. So that's something to take into consideration. The other thing is that acceleration can be socially harmful to gifted children. We need them in with their peers. Chances are they are bored with their peers because they're not at an intellectual level. Chances are they are bored with what their peers are getting because they probably study and learn on their own, or they absorb and interpret and synthesize, and they learn what is being taught very, very quickly. And then, you know, the teacher can stop talking because I already know all this, and I've already jumped 10 steps ahead of the teacher based on what the teacher just gave me. So these are some of the problems that are very prevalent in schools and in families and with the individuals as well, the gifted individuals. These are the issues that they have to deal with, and they keep coming up over and over again, year after year after year. And the idea of keeping kids in regular classrooms should be really rethought. I think we have special schools for athletes who are highly talented. Why not have special schools for the highly intelligent? I think it's only fair. When we do that, we obviously are meeting their needs. Hopefully, we're going to meet their needs on a higher intellectual level. There's another little factor that a lot of people need to think about. The worst thing that we can possibly have in our society is gifted criminals, gifted evil people. You've seen all kinds of movies where highly gifted people do all kinds of criminal activities, from scammings in Las Vegas to the giant bank robberies and so on, to highly sophisticated scams. Those are not created by ordinary people. They are highly intelligent people. So if we have highly intelligent children, then it's really important to make sure that those highly intelligent children become highly intelligent teenagers in a good way, as a good people, and then become good and productive and experienced adults who are willing to contribute positively to our society. All of those things are very important. If we talk about personality characteristics, take a look at the intellectual as well as the personal characteristics, the personality characteristics. And on the intellectual level, we're looking at exceptional reasoning ability. Quite often there's a good curiosity level, they're high curiosity level. They learn very quickly, and they can take that learning and not just feed it back to you, but they can reinterpret it and create some new learning out of it as well. There's some pretty complex thought processing that's going on. And the vivid imagination often goes along with that. And if we can catch them early, before school, and there's a passion for learning, it is vital, absolutely vital, that teachers and school institutions do the same thing. We got to maintain that passion for learning. Quite often, when kids get into school, the first few years, they have most of their creativity kicked out of them. They do creativity when the teacher tells them to do the creativity, and so on. I'm not trying to put down the whole system, okay? Don't get me wrong here. There are some exceptionally great teachers out there who can nurture any child to get the absolute best out of them. And inevitably, at some point within the first 8 years of elementary school, you're going to get a teacher or two who just isn't the right person to match up with your gifted child. And there should be some contingency plans if that happens. The personality characteristics, you're going to notice your child being insightful. They have great insight. They're going to interpret what's happening in society during protests and marches and stuff like that. There's going to be a question that they have for you that requires you to explain how something works. They need to understand, not just know the facts, but they need to understand. Also, they need great mental stimulation. From a parent point of view, take them places, do things, show them new ideas, and try and get them involved in some way, shape, or form during and perhaps afterwards. So for example, let's say you go off to a festival, a Spanish festival. When you get home, well, what do you know about Spain? You want to find out anything about that? Spain has lots of interesting dances. Spain has bullfights. What do you know about bullfights? Are they still on? Why did they come about? Why only Spain and maybe some of the Mexico and Puerto Rico and so on, they have bullfights? So that's the way to sort of guide them into the area. Keep them excited about learning everything about life. And the other thing too is be aware of perfectionism. Quite often they want everything that they do to be perfect. What happens quite often if it isn't perfect, they don't complete it. The best way of dealing with that is saying, well, take a look around at the world. Is there anything that doesn't need improvement? They put it out there anyway. Cars, look at the cars. I mean, you think a car is perfect? Next year, they're going to add something. They're going to make it even better. So the same thing goes for what you produce. Do your best. Put it out there right now. You can always change it later. But let people have a look at it. Give people an idea of what your thinking is all about. Your invention, your recipe, your project, your study, that kind of a thing. Along those lines, for instance, I heard a story about a young boy whose grandmother had Alzheimer's. And the child was interested in learning about Alzheimer's, went to the family doctor who said, I don't know very much about Alzheimer's, but, you know, it's okay. So the little boy said, wow, you know, I need to learn about Alzheimer's. Maybe we can help my grandma. So he studied it and went back to the doctor to ask more questions. The doctor became more and more impressed. And eventually, in talking to the young boy, found out that this boy knew more about Alzheimer's than him and all kinds of other doctors that he knew. And he arranged for this boy to do a presentation at a conference of doctors on the topic of Alzheimer's from a layman's point of view. So that's the kind of thing that we want from highly intelligent people. So as I said, what we want from these people is to become self-directed independent learners, and we want them to become experts and specialists. The only way that they're going to be doing that is if we teach them skills, highly personal competency skills. I've got that available to you if you're interested. This is the first source. This is my first book. This is a collection of 48 personal competency skills. It's available on my website. And each of these skills is defined, explained, and then you can apply them as well. Secondly, this is the rest of what I've learned in gifted education. And in here, especially for educators, there's a whole section here on creating skills-based curriculum. I did a workshop with a group of about 100 teachers in Mumbai, India, on a webinar on this very topic. So that's all ready to go. If you want to form a group, get in touch with me. I'd be very happy to do a webinar with you on how to develop skills-based curriculum. As parents, you need to be aware of your child's skills more than what the information they collect, because it's the skills that are going to take them forward in life. And you teach them skills, you teach them how to fly. If you just teach them knowledge, facts, and information, you're just telling them about flying. So be aware. I'm just looking at the time right now. It's 33 minutes since we started. Like I said, Cheryl, I don't know if you're able to see this or participate or whatever. I've taken the liberty of controlling this, and whatever happens, happens. If you want to do this all over again, great. If you like what's here, I'll be happy to let you keep it, and we'll see what happens. This is very unusual. whoever's listening, if anybody, thank you for joining me, and have a good afternoon. And come back to this and maybe review it if you missed any of the points or would like to strengthen your knowledge and experience with the area of giftedness from A to Z. All right. So thank you and goodbye.